Hi, my name is Lucy Knops, and my thesis project is titled The Void. The void defined as an empty space, nothingness. But what if nothing could be something? What if we could add to our lives by taking away more? Can absence give us substance? These are the questions that this thesis asks. There is an abundance of fascinating material on subjects of void and nothingness, from science to religion, philosophy to art. Heidegger, in Being and Time, wrote that the world is full of distractions. When we cut through those distractions, we become in touch with our authentic selves. My thesis uses the void to do just that. In 1958, Yves Klein exhibited a gallery absent of any work, challenging the very notion of exhibition. John Cage's silent composition, 433, exemplified the power of music without sound. Rauschenberg's Erased Kooning shows us the value of something we can never see. So these incredible artists used absence as their material. In each case, absence necessitated a certain structure and context to give it meaning. A blank screen takes on meaning only within the construct of me standing here giving a presentation. So this is one of the paradoxes of the void. It necessitates structure. This insight and the use of absence as a material are central to the work I'm presenting today. Klein here is himself pictured in a photomontage entitled Leap into the Void. I decided to take my own leap several times throughout this year. But how does one experience the void? I attempted in a sensory deprivation tank. No light, no sound, not even the feeling of your own weight. For me, experiencing nothingness ended up being anything but empty. By subtracting external sound, light, and weight, internal elements were heightened. My pulse was startlingly loud. I was distracted by not knowing if my eyes were open or closed, and my mind raced thinking about my thoughts and my thought process. So the void may frame emptiness, but it is a riddle. Rather than containing nothing, the void is always filled with something. And it is in that potential where I'm seeking to improve lives. Design using the void to move us closer to our authentic selves. So I started this project, titled Nothing to Wear, on the first day I presented my thesis topic on September 22nd. I wanted to bring the void into my daily life in a tangible way. So I carefully curated this uniform. And I emptied my closets of all of the other garments. So I've worn my uniform every day since. Today is day 228. And many others have worn uniform. Obama does it to limit decision fatigue. Steve Jobs did it to further himself as a brand. And artist Andrea Zittel designs and makes her own uniform to liberate herself from the market demand for constant variety. I did it to design absence into my life and to subtract the daily decision of what to wear from my routine. It has proven to be a liberating experience, and I honestly cannot imagine going back. But more on this later. So seeking to share absence with my classmates, I implemented a minute of silence at the beginning of each class. Over the course of this year, the minute of silence was adopted as a daily ritual that my classmates began to initiate on their own. Building upon the successful adoption of the minute of silence, I conducted a prototype to validate the impact of sharing absence with someone remotely. Through text, I asked friends for a minute of their time and then requested that they sit in silence until I texted back 60 seconds later. Here we have one participant's reaction, where he is pleasantly surprised once he realized that nothing was being asked of him. Instead, he was given something just for himself. So taking the findings from this prototype, I developed the concept into a mobile app, where the experience can be repeated and shared across a broader audience. But it's impossible to talk about distraction and lack of absence in our lives without talking about the role of technology. Genevieve Bell, an anthropologist and head of user experience research at Intel, is the person to talk to about technology. She told me that smartphones were sold to us as a promise to be connected, but they have become less and less about being connected. They instead are a promise that you'll never be by yourself again. You will never be bored. So a minute recognizes that our phones are the source of much of our distraction, but it aims to utilize the device as an ally, the necessary structure for accessing the void. The app simply allows friends to send and receive minutes to sit back and enjoy doing nothing. So the navigation is straightforward with only two main options. And when you send a friend a minute, a notification alerts them of the gift. And these minutes are ephemeral and only last an hour. And when you initiate a minute, your phone is switched to sleep mode. And after initial indication that the minute has started, the screen clears for the remainder of the time. And then quick encouragement pops up at the end of each minute. So understanding the importance of accountability, the app lets the sender know that you have taken the time to enjoy the minute they have gifted you. I then went so far as to replace people's phones with non-functional ones to see how they would respond. Armed with 2 bags full of bubble-wrapped foam core phones, backed with an explanation of the value in purposefully doing nothing, which I refer to as structured nothing, I set out on a Brooklyn-bound L train on a Wednesday evening.
Union Square.
Everybody's just snapping away. That's why I like it. I used to always, when you stressed out, you do like, dun, 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 dun.
See, I used to get like all the big rolls and just stomp on them.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
So on this one train ride, I handed out 136 bubble-wrapped phones. It initiated conversations both during and after the initial engagement. And then passengers were directed to a website where they could share their personal idea of structured nothing. I received thank you emails recounting interactions amongst strangers, and I saw evidence on social media that the experience broke through people's daily routine. You can see this one gentleman, Danny, couldn't resist the opportunity of reaching out to thank me for nothing. So the prop of the bubble-wrapped phone serves as the structure the subway passengers needed to tap into the void. You can't just tell someone to do nothing. You need to provide them with something. Behavioral science suggests that to break one habit, we need to replace it with a new one. So Surrogate is a product that aims to do just that. It's a cement replica of one's phone. It's intended to be swapped out and carried as you carry your actual phone. And yes, unfortunately, we live in a world where a fake phone has value. One user kept the Surrogate on him during an interview when he didn't want to be stressed about having his phone ring, but also didn't want the anxiety of feeling that the phone was missing. Another reported that the Surrogate drew awareness to the countless times he unconsciously reaches for his phone throughout the day. The Surrogate nudged him to start using both devices less. So I'm going to return now to the concept of uniform, where I want to get specific about how subtraction has added to my life in this instance. So there are many quantitative benefits to uniform. I spent 38% less on clothes in the past 8 months than I did during the same 8 months last year. And I saw a 55% savings from the year prior when I wasn't living on a student budget. Just since September, I've saved approximately 47 hours, nearly full 2 days getting dressed. But it's the qualitative benefits that add the most value. I would go as far as to say that uniform has changed my identity. The experience has changed my personal outlook by illuminating for me how much value I place on what I wear. And my peers now identify me with my uniform, alleviating any social pressure about clothing choices. So the next time you look at your closet full of clothes, consider the burden of those choices being eliminated from your life, and imagine what you could potentially put into the void that would replace it. So to develop uniform as a service offering, over the course of the month, I conducted research with 2 users. One a working professional, and the other, Andres, who you just met, who insisted on participating. So after spending a week creating a baseline and examining their existing dressing habits, I guided them through selecting and wearing a uniform for the remainder of the month. 2 key findings were that the less variety, the more successful the uniform, and that recording and sharing the process with others is key to motivation. So uniformed is a service offering. Its aim is to challenge the fact that we spend too much time, resources, and cognitive energy on producing, advertising, buying, and choosing what to wear. Through the service, uniformed agents provide members with guidance and an allotment of quality garments that are selected to wear well over time. By modeling out the business of Uniformed as a partnership with like-minded brands, it can launch quickly without having to produce its own line of clothing. Community and the ability for members to share their experience is central to the offering. One additional feature is a return service, where members can donate unwanted pre-uniform garments via the shipping packaging. So members are each provided with a personalized page to track their progress, which they can make public on the Uniform site. And the Uniform blog features members who have hit certain time milestones. In contrast to the plethora of fashion blogs currently on the market, which focus on people's clothing and product choices, the Uniform blog chooses to highlight the thoughts and experiences of its members. So Uniform aims to offer a viable alternative to the growing trends of fast, disposable fashion and improve people's lives in the process. The goal is to empower people on an individual scale, then bring them together as a community to cause effect on a large scale. So I'm going to close looking towards the future. Penelope is a product that speculates a shift of our cultural attitudes towards absence, where it becomes valued as a critical mental state. Penelope is an endless weaving loom, where the process takes precedent over the output of one's work. As you weave, the circular rotation of the loom continuously undoes the weaving process. The work here is never finished. So with this loom, you tend to the practice of doing nothing, tapping into its full cognitive and creative benefits. In the Odyssey, Queen Penelope secretly tended to her love for Odysseus by weaving all day and unraveling her work by night, in order to keep unwanted suitors at bay. With Penelope the loom, one privately tends to their practice of nothing. So I'll end by saying that we have a choice. We can design the void into our lives. I hope I've encouraged you today to take the time, just sometimes, to embrace nothing, and to find a space, even if just for a minute, to invite absence into your life. So thank you for coming with me into the void, and thank you to the many people who have supported me in this leap, and especially to Ray.
So I have this, which I've been using for a few weeks here. So this is great. I'm actually going to pass this down because you have to feel it. You can hear it. It's concrete. I come home from work, hopefully most days, plug in my phone, take this, put it in my pocket. I do register how many times I reach for it, for sure. But it's pretty unbelievable, I have to say. It's an absurdity that you had even acknowledged it, to have a fake phone having value in the real world.
Yeah, it was one of those things where when I came up with the idea, I was like, this is either the dumbest thing I've done, or maybe it's kind of clever.
And perhaps the smartest. Talk to us a little bit about structured nothing.
Yeah, so the term structured nothing actually came up in a conversation that I had with Brian David Johnson, who's a futurist at Intel and a writer. And he used the term kind of casually in referencing times where you purposely do nothing, like staring out of the window or going for a run or taking a shower. But for me, it just struck a chord and kind of has related back to everything I've done, where I kind of consider the void, the structure around nothingness, and then just this idea of tending, like fostering these moments where you can intentionally do nothing became like a huge goal for me.
Yeah, it's so consistent with designers needing constraints, I think. And it was remarkable. You know, we're always telling our thesis students that the thesis topic actually doesn't matter, that they just have to go be a designer around anything. And the fact that you chose to be a designer around nothing and were so productive, I mean, it was just, and there's a lot of things you did not see in this presentation. And landing with Penelope, of course, like I love that. And just so poetic. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your own personal commitment to the project. Maybe you can share a couple details with the audience around what it's been like. 200 and how many days now?
28.
28 days.
Yeah, in the same outfit. Well, I didn't cheat, but there's the one day for the subway experience where that was a uniform. Yeah, it was a stage uniform. I wore all white to kind of stand out. But
what have been a couple of the surprising things about it? I mean, you've loved it, right?
yeah, it's. I think when I first set out to do it, I thought I would do it for a month at first, but then it just coincided. I started on the first day that we presented our thesis, so then I decided to set the goal of wearing it until this last day, today. So I'm going to wear a different outfit tomorrow, which is really weird. But I am planning a summer uniform. I'm going to keep going with this. But yeah, there's just like little moments that are weird. I had to buy work shoes for my bartending job, and it was the first time in like 4 months that I had gone into a store intending to buy something. And it was in that moment that I realized how successfully I'd pulled myself out of that whole process. So yeah, there's been some amazing kind of extra benefits to it.
Yeah. And you shared with us a little bit about turning it into a service. You had presented this service a few weeks ago to a group of venture capitalists who kind of like went wild over it. What do you think?
I mean, it's kind of, well, even when I was modeling it out as a service, I've had so many personal benefits, but I was unsure if it made sense as a business. But I think the same thing with structure. It's like the more help you can give people and like the more decision you can take out of it, the easier it becomes. So it does really make sense as a service. And there's certain things that are important to know, like the fiber content of things that will wear well over time. And so there is kind of some
rigor.
Yeah, some expertise that can go into the guidance of helping other people do it.
Well, maybe something to end on is there was a thesis week when you were away, and the group had elected to do the moment of silence even though you weren't there. So this is contagious and inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks. Exhibited a gallery absent of any work, challenging the very notion of exhibition. John Cage's silent composition, 433, exemplified the power of music without sound. Rauschenberg's Erased de Kooning shows us the value of something we can never see. So these incredible artists used absence as their material. In each case, absence necessitated a certain structure and context to give it meaning. A blank screen takes Hi, my name is Lucy Knops, and my thesis project is titled The Void. The void defined as an empty space, nothingness. But what if nothing could be something? What if we could add to our lives by taking away more? Can absence give us substance? These are the questions that this thesis asks. There is an abundance of fascinating material on subjects of void and nothingness, from science to religion, philosophy to art. Heidegger, in Being and Time, wrote that the world is full of distractions. When we cut through those distractions, we become in touch with our authentic selves. My thesis uses the void to do just that. In 1958, Yves Klein, but how does one experience the void? I attempted in a sensory deprivation tank. No light, no sound, not even the feeling of your own weight. For me, experiencing nothingness ended up being anything but empty. By subtracting external sound, light, and weight, internal elements were heightened. My pulse was startlingly loud. I was distracted by not knowing if my eyes were open or closed. And my mind raced thinking about my thoughts on meaning only within the construct of me standing here giving a presentation. So this is one of the paradoxes of the void. It necessitates structure. This insight and the use of absence as a material are central to the work I'm presenting today. Klein here is himself pictured in a photo montage entitled Leap into the Void. I decided to take my own leap several times throughout this year.